Right now, you know exactly how many people exist in the world. 8 billion, give or take. You've seen photos of cities you'll never visit, holding people who speak languages you'll never learn. That knowledge feels so basic you've never thought about where it comes from. But for most of human history, nobody knew that. For roughly 300,000 years, the average human being had absolutely no way of knowing whether their own small group was the only group of people on Earth. And the moment they found out otherwise, changed everything about how humans understood themselves. Let's start with the numbers, because they're more extreme than most people realize. In 2019, a team of geneticists led by researchers publishing in Nature Communications analyzed ancient human DNA and estimated that early Homo sapiens populations in Africa, around 150,000 to 100,000 years ago, likely existed in small, semi-isolated bands, sometimes numbering only in the dozens. Not thousands, not hundreds, dozens. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar, studying modern hunter-gatherer groups as a model for ancient social structure, found that immediate bands typically ranged from about 25 to 50 people, nested inside slightly larger networks of a few hundred that gathered occasionally. If you were born into one of those immediate bands, the entire population of humanity, as far as your direct experience could tell you, might be smaller than your local grocery store's staff today. So how would you even begin to suspect that other humans existed at all? The honest answer is that for a long time, you probably wouldn't. Archaeologist Colin Renfrew, in his research on early human territoriality, described how small foraging bands typically operated within defined ranges, following food and water sources across a landscape they knew intimately, generation after generation. You'd know every hill, every river bend, every place the fruit trees grew reliably in a good year. Your world had edges, but you probably never walked far enough to find them. Now picture the actual walk, because someone eventually took it. You leave camp following a game trail that's thinner than the ones you know. The land starts looking unfamiliar by the second day. By the third, you're eating whatever you can find rather than what you planned for, because you're further from home than anyone in your family has ever gone on purpose. Part of you knows you should turn back. And then, across a valley you don't recognize, you see smoke rising that isn't yours. The evidence for what happened after moments like that comes from an unlikely source: your own genome. Geneticist Svante Pääbo, who won the Nobel Prize in 2022 for his work sequencing the Neanderthal genome, discovered something remarkable buried in the DNA of nearly every person alive outside Africa today. Somewhere between 1 and 4% of that DNA isn't from Homo sapiens at all. It's Neanderthal, which means, at some point, a group of Homo sapiens encountered a completely different kind of human, one that had been evolving separately for hundreds of thousands of years, and the encounter went far enough that they had children together. You've probably had a version of this feeling before, seeing a stranger who looks almost, but not quite, like everyone you already know. That small flicker of unfamiliarity your brain has to work to process. Now imagine that feeling with no word yet for stranger, because you didn't know that category existed. Heavier brows, different proportions, a way of walking that isn't quite yours. You have no framework for what you're looking at, because as far as you knew, there was only one way to be human, and it was yours. Genetic evidence suggests this wasn't a single encounter. Pääbo's research, along with later studies published in Science, indicates multiple, separate interbreeding events between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals occurring over tens of thousands of years, in different regions at different times, which means groups of humans kept walking far enough from home to make this exact discovery independently, again and again. And Neanderthals weren't the only surprise. In 2010, researchers analyzing a finger bone found in Denisova Cave in Siberia identified DNA belonging to an entirely separate group of ancient humans, now called Denisovans, previously completely unknown to science. Modern populations in parts of Asia and Oceania carry Denisovan DNA today, which means somewhere, sometime, another group of Homo sapiens walked far enough east to encounter yet another kind of human nobody had a name for. So here's the actual sequence, laid out plainly. Africa, discovering it, wasn't alone. Then, tens of thousands of years later, groups in the Middle East and Europe discovering Neanderthals. Then, further east, other groups discovering Denisovans. Then, tens of thousands of years after that, a small group crossing open ocean to reach Australia, arriving on land already unfamiliar, only to eventually encounter other human bands who had gotten there by entirely different routes. Every single population of humans, on every continent, independently lived through this same disorienting realization, with no shared story to prepare them for it, because none existed yet. There's a reason this matters beyond ancient genetics. Discovering that you are not alone, that the world holds more people, more languages, more ways of being human than your own small band, might be one of the oldest and most disorienting realizations our species has ever collectively experienced. No maps existed to warn them. No stories yet existed to explain it. Every single time, someone had to be first. Today, you learned the population of the entire planet before you learned to ride a bike. It's a fact so basic, it feels like it was always simply true, the way gravity is true. You will likely never have the experience those first travelers had, genuinely discovering with your own eyes that an entirely unknown kind of person exists, with no warning, no story, and no way to prepare for it. We've mapped the planet. We've mapped each other. That specific kind of discovery is gone, and most of us never even notice it's missing. You know the whole world exists. For most of human history, that single piece of knowledge was the rarest thing a person could possess.